Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horizon of Hope. We are on our fourth episode discussing strategies to walk through the valley of death. Thank you for all your support. It's great to hear some stories where you feel comforted and consoled listening to some of the points that I share with you through this episode. So, as a recap of our story, very briefly, valley means a time of transition, and the particular transition or change in our lives, what we are focusing on is happen because of our own sins, because of our own reckless way of dealing in life. So we are forced into a time of change. And that's what we define as a valley. It's a place of shame. It's a place of guilt. It's a place we really lament what we lost in the first half of life. Now we are in a place of transition, looking forward to the next half in life. Now, how to survive this time of transition and change, carrying the guilt of what we have done or what we have lost, and also carrying the anxiety how things will turn out for us in the future. The first strategy we discussed was creating an arc, a deliberate way of cutting down a lot of connections, creating a safe place in order to float above the crisis. Second was the strategy to find a narrative from the Bible or a story that helps us to connect with, to understand and correlate our story, what we are going through, and find meaning and significance in our story through the story of the Bible. The third strategy we discussed was to be our own best friend. And one of the lines that I shared was, even if everyone against me, I will always have my back. The fourth strategy that I would like to share with you is something that I learned from my counselor. One of the blessings in the time of my transition, the time of my valley experience to meet a counselor. And she was a blessing to me because she was a practicing Catholic. She understood the gospel. When I say the gospel means that there is life, then there is suffering, then there is death, and then there is resurrection, and which leads us to anointed new life with the Holy Spirit. Now, she understood this core of the gospel, that we have to go through our suffering and death to rise again. So she was the best counselor for me. And every time I go to her, sharing my pain, sharing my shame, and trying to understand what I was going through, she would give me, I think she always said this to me in every session, is that, Bonnie, stay close to the reality. Bonnie, stay close to the reality. That's the fourth strategy that I would like to share with you. Staying close to the reality. Now, what does it mean to stay close to the reality? Now, when we are in the valley, there are two possibilities, according to my own experience, is to really lean. This is being on the ground, if this we can use this as image, being on the ground level. Sometimes we feel always leaning forward, thinking and worrying about the future. What is going to happen to me? How am I going to tackle my issues? Will I ever be able to come back to normal life? So this anxiety about the future, this justification, this defensiveness, this trying to control the future, always leaning forward, that we try to control the future. So that's leaning forward. It's an anxious stage of life. There is a lot of justification, defensive spirit happens. Then sometimes I experience to be in the past, that being very self-pitying, very self-destructive thinking, that I mucked up my life, my family's origin and genetic thing is that I muck up and there's something wrong with my family, there's something wrong with me, indulging in self pity, indulging in shame, and just really caving and withdrawing into my own world of pitying and pity party. Let's dance together. Now, that's my experience, and your experience could be different. So, what I noticed, there was always this time of hope that I'm going to survive through this time, and I'm going to fight through this. Then the self pity is pushing me back. You done something wrong. You've been an abusive husband, and your wife has all the recordings of your abusive words or the drama that you had in front of your children. She keeps all the records. She will file a case. How can you repair your life? So you go back to shame and self pity from a time of rebuilding and being hopeful about the future. So we go from this anxious thinking of the future to the shameful indulging of the past. Well, when I share that with my counselor or therapist, she would always say to me, Bonnie, stay close to the reality. In other words, she would say, stay on the ground, don't lean forward. Accept that, of course, there is an anxiety. And oh, yes, there is something happened in your past, you mucked up. Well, don't be judged by that, don't be defined by that. Now, what is happening to you? Yes, I'm in the valley, I'm in a time of transition. I accept everything that I go through. It reminds me of Psalm 51, where David is so close to the reality. You all know Psalm 51. We all know that. Have mercy on me, God, that according to your steadfast love, according to your abundant mercy, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. For I know my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. Against you, you alone have I sinned. Now, this is where he's being really close to the reality. The reality of God's love and God's mercy is beyond any human sin. No human sin can kind of block or stop or reduce the size of God's love and mercy. It is beyond our knowledge, the depth and the breadth and the width and the height of God's love. We can't imagine. So David is acknowledging that God's mercy, God's abundant love can blot out my transgressions. But at the same time, David is acknowledging the reality, for I have sinned. I'm not trying to justify me. I'm not going to try to defend me. I'm not going caving into my self-pity. But rather, I'm being honest to myself. I have sinned. But my God's mercy can blot out my transgressions. See, that is what I mean by staying close to the reality. And when we stay close to the reality, what happens? If we avoid or escape our pain that we experience because of our tragedy, we are going to transmit that pain. So we have to transform the pain. And if we don't transform the pain, we're going to definitely transmit the pain. What is transformation means? The Latin word transformare means change in shape. In order to change in shape, the pain has to become part of us. That's what we read in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 2, verse 9, and then chapter 3, verse 6 or to verse 3. It says, Ezekiel, in front of Ezekiel, God spread it before me. A scroll, he spread it before me. It had writing on the front and the back. And it was all written. What it was written? Lamentations and pain and tragedy. And then it's been asked to Ezekiel, take the scroll and eat it. And Ezekiel says, I ate the scroll and then I ate it, and in my mouth it was as sweet as honey. This is the experience of Ezekiel. A scroll is given to him. It's full of lamentations and pain. And he was asked to eat it. And when he ate it, when it became part of him, when he accepted the pain, when he accepted the lamentation, eventually it became sweet as honey. There is a scene that I really like in the Passion of Christ movie by Mel Gibson. Is when Jesus was given the cross, he actually embraced the cross and he looks at the cross and then he slowly, as if he is kissing. To me, that was very moving when I was going through the valley to watch that film. The cross, the way Jesus was relating to the cross, that he's accepting it, have a good look at the cross and embracing and kissing it. And that is a job in our valley. The job in our valley is not to fix the future or fix the past or design the future, but rather there it is, the cross. Our own sin, our own problem with anger, our own problem with addictions, maybe our own character issues. That is our cross. And we have to carry it. And how many times Jesus would say, carry your cross daily. Here in the valley, we are accepting the pain and the shame and the things we need to change in our lives. We have a good look at it. We eat it. We embrace it. Eventually, this cross will become a honey. You look at anywhere in the world, cross is not a symbol of shame anymore. It is a symbol of new life and power. So the things we struggle now, the sins we struggle now, the weaknesses we struggle now, the problems we carry now becomes our jumping board into grace. That becomes a springboard into grace. These crosses will transform as long as we allow, we embrace them. Now, in order to stay close to the reality, one strategy is to always ask questions, especially when we feel very anxious about the future, shameful about the past, scrolling and withdrawing. What helped me was to ask me questions that put me in the here and now. In the here and now. And what are those questions? This simple question: what is happening to me now? When I get anxious, when I get troubled, I ask myself, what is happening to me now, Bonnie? Then I say the answer. I'm a bit scared. I'm thinking about the future. I saw someone who I know from the previous life. She asked me something. I feel a bit scared. Okay, I acknowledge that. That is the reality. And I stay close to it. So what is happening to me now? That question, it's not what happened to you? What will you do? No, what is happening now? That question puts us straight into the reality and helps us to stay close to it. The second thing that helped me was to express and write. I wrote journals, but more than that, I wrote poems in the valley. When you are depressed, you can really express. So when you are depressed, be ready to express. And I was given the blessing of spontaneous blessing. I didn't think about it, but I was naturally drawn to write. And I wrote poems. And I would like to share with you two poems. One poem, I was very disturbed and I didn't know what was happening to me. So I kind of, sitting with my Bible and my journal, I wrote down a poem. And when I finished writing it, I understood what was happening to me, what was the reality, and I had the opportunity at that time to stay close to it. Now, the poem, I call it The Pendulum. My mind is like a pendulum. It goes to the left, then and thinks that's the best. Then to the middle, thinking where to next. Then it swings to the right, deeming it as good. It is back in the middle again for a rest. Swings to the pole, dumps to the center. In between, lungs gasps for life. Right or the middle or the left, swinging never ceases. Nonetheless, the time above me is ticking. Now, this was a very anxious time, and I didn't know, I was panicking. But when I decided to write, I had this glimpse into the reality that I'm worrying about the future. It's like the pendulum. To the right, that could be the future. Then to the left of how can I build my future because I have done something wrong? It's a shame. Then to the middle because I'm tired. So right and left, and then to the middle. Then again, right and left into the middle. My mind was like a pendulum. As soon as I had that image, I just became calmer. I said, what is happening to me? I'm worried about the future. I'm ashamed about the past. But in the here and now, I stay close to this suffering, this pain. I pay attention to it. It is in front of me. I embrace it. Then the next poem I wrote, it's about my own pain. It's about the reality. And it is like this. Can't find any rhythm in your punches, can't measure the depth of your stings, can't figure out the sneer of your face, can't resist the force of your blows. I'm talking about pain. Not sure when did you arrive, not sure how long would you stay, not sure what else you surprise me with, not sure which way you would exit. Stuffing the ears won't block your chatter. Shutting the eyes won't stop you glaring. Smell of the roses won't cease your fetid odor. Sipping through them, you rule over all my senses. Imposing, exposing, bulldozing, you reign. Fisting, resisting, desisting, I remain. Immersing into your fidgety presence, undergoing becomes my only exit. The last line, to me, helped me to be very close to the reality. I didn't know how I wrote this, but when you are in depression, you express. And the last line it was undergoing, immersing into your fidgety presence. Fidgety presence, of course, you know. Undergoing becomes my only exit. I had to undergo it. There is no other way around it. My dear brothers and sisters, like Ezekiel who ate the scroll of lamentations and eventually it became honey to him, like David who stayed close to the reality of the mercy of God, but also the reality of his own sin and brokenness. Let us not shun away from our pain, our crosses, because it is by our cross that we are saved. It is through our pain and weakness and brokenness we are received into the next stage in life. I'll see you in our next episode, which will be our last episode discussing on the strategies of walking through the valley of death. God bless you. Thank you. Bye bye.